my first question. We both seem to have an epiphany at one point that we were both in the Marines. There's a special camaraderie between Marines, isn't there?
That's right.
I mean, like, I don't know you very well, but I know that if something went down, I would be right next to you.
That's
right.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of the training, to bring everybody onto the same team so that no matter where you go in the whole wide world, every Marine you meet is a brother or a sister.
Yeah. Do you think the world is missing that today? Do you think that?
I think that used to you would get that. So attending a school, your whole life, like, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I went through all the grades with the same people, the same 25, 30 people in my class, basically, first grade all the way to high school. Those are people, I've still got friends from those days that I still go visit today when I'm back at home in Georgia. I do think that camaraderie, fellowship. I'm a member of the local Freemasons Lodge.
Okay.
I did that years ago.
Do they have a secret handshake?
Yeah, it's very ancient.
Yeah,
it's very archaic and a very deep old tradition. It's just a fraternity. Are you a part of that because you feel like you need some of that camaraderie and brotherhood? Oh yeah, and that was the point I was getting to, is that all of those organizations are shrinking rapidly.
Yeah.
So I get a magazine every month. I'm a member both in Georgia and in North Carolina, and I get both their monthly magazines, statewide magazines. And in the back is always like all the gentlemen who have died that quarter or whatever, or month or whatever. I mean, it's hundreds. Maybe thousands a year that are dying off. Wow. And they're not recruiting that many. So you think of all your social organizations. I used to go down here to the Chariot where they're building the Fairmont now.
Yeah.
The Chariot was a building down there where it was an old restaurant, and that's where Rotary met and Kiwanis and all these organizations. And all of those organizations are slowly dwindling away.
Yeah.
Attrition at the upper end of the age spectrum is higher than replacement. And, all of those organizations at one time are what built communities. Yeah. Well, I mean, church probably was the number one. Right? Absolutely. And that's really missing in the world. Not only does church just give you a boundary, of moral and ethical boundary, but it also gives you a family. Yeah. And, the Marine Corps did that for me. I was raised by a single mom. In 11th grade, I went to, or at the end of 10th grade before 11th grade, I went to the high school counselor, and we talked for a minute, and he's like, "Son, I just got to tell you, you ain't going to college." He's like, "You got a single mom. She works at Walmart. You got a brother. Y'all live out in the middle of nowhere. You are going to have to find something else to do." So that's why I joined the military. And so I was like, okay, I mean, it's the first grown person to ever tell me what was up. So I joined the military, and during the process of joining, I was like, my heart wasn't in it. Yeah. I wasn't doing it for the right reason. I was doing it because somebody else told me I should. And so I realized somewhere through there that I could, instead of going in full time, I could do reserves. And so I did that. The recruiters were really not happy about that. They were really angry. Yeah. Because I guess they don't get the same credit for recruiting reservists as they do for a full-time person. Right.
They want those bodies in there.
I'll tell you what, man, as soon as I stepped foot off of that bus on Paris Island, I was like, I have made a mistake.
I think everybody felt that way when they arrived at boot camp.
Yeah, I'm sure. But but it really was a blessing. Yeah. Because as soon as I stepped off that bus, I thought I made a mistake, and I'm going to college when I get out of here. And so went through boot camp, went to the school. I was a Stinger missile gunner.
Oh, cool.
And we actually had a reserve unit on the Naval Air Station in Atlanta, north of Atlanta. So that was convenient. And then I went to junior college and then transferred to University of Georgia. And the whole time,
go Dogs.
Yeah, go Dogs. The whole time I'm doing reserve duty, going back and forth. And this was during I joined in 90, went to boot camp in 91, and it was right after the Gulf War had finished, the first Gulf War. And so they had us on high alert. So we were actually doing 2 weekends a month. We did that for like 2 or 3 years. So it was pretty frequent how much we were training and everything. So, went in the military, went to college, and thank God, because I had no background, nobody to encourage me to go to college, and nobody in my family had ever gone to college. And college was what really kind of opened my eyes to the world, of course. And that's what it's supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Take small town people and expose them to art and music and, all the things they probably didn't get exposed to when they were young.
Yeah. It's not for everybody, but it helps, It's definitely something that helps. And it's good to do it when you're young, when you should do it rather than, later in life, I think.
Yeah. I think that, they're calling the generation that's coming up now the kind of the tool belt generation. They're shunning forgoing college and going and getting technical degrees or just going straight into the trades and working as an apprentice and that sort of thing. And that's great. But man, liberal arts education is really eye-opening, especially to a person who didn't have parents who were, into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I really lament that more kids won't get if less kids go to school.
Yeah. Because
college really is getting a bad rap.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. And it is a bad rap. I mean, it's basically got corrupted by, greedy universities and government officials, and they're super top heavy. They're paying their presidents $4 million a year.
Right.
The deans of the colleges are making $500 to $1 million a year. I mean, that's just awfully wrong.
Yeah.
And the kids are having to pay the bills, go into debt to do it. So that corruption, quote unquote, if you want to call it that, or just skewed priorities, has really given college a bad name.
Yeah.
And I work for a university. Yeah, I work for NC State University, and I don't believe in anything more than the usefulness of a college degree.
Yeah.
The right college degree, a useful college degree. And I'm glad that kids are going straight into the trades.
Yeah.
My son just graduated from App State up in Boone. He got a degree.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank God. He got a degree in computer science, which, his professors were basically like, we're teaching you this, but AI is going to be doing all this. So you all are kind of screwed. So he was really worried. But as soon as he got out, he got a job working for a construction company building computer. He's working at the Samsung plant out in Austin.
Oh, wow.
Building it. So he's
nice.
Doing the technical side of the building, hooking up the computers and building the machinery and all that.
Yeah. Do you think you may have had a little chip on your shoulder from your guidance counselor?
Oh, yeah.
And did that?
I got a lot of chips on my shoulder.
That fuels you though, right?
Yeah. No, that's it certainly does. I really have a passion when I meet a kid, and we get to. So for those of you listening, I work for the Henderson County Extension Office, and it's an office of the NC State University. The extension is the third leg of the university stool with research, teaching, and then extension. Extension extends the knowledge generated at the university to the people.
Okay.
Maybe to the people who aren't actually attending the college, right?
Right.
So it's an outreach program started back in the early 1900s, originally to assist farmers.
Okay.
With their sort of thing. And so we get to meet a lot of kids because we have the 4-H program I do agriculture and horticulture. And so do my colleagues, and then in the office. And then we have a 4-H agent and a family consumer science agent. Family consumer science is the old school home ec stuff, plus health and wellness and all the new kind of things that they're doing. But the 4-H program is our youth leadership and development program. It's been around as long as Extension. And so we get kids in, and they basically do a project. They do a research project, essentially. They pick a topic, say horses, and they start at 8 and go all the way to 18. Then they have to present that topic. And so they learn how to speak, just like you and I are doing. This is not something I was born able to do, to be able to just get in front of people and talk and not be nervous and be able to present a well thought out program or a presentation. And but when I meet these kids, I meet a lot of them are, they're rural, their parents aren't rich, and maybe their parents haven't given them the confidence to pursue college or shoot for the moon,
Yeah.
And so anytime I get a chance to talk to a kid like that, man, I will encourage them as much as I can. Tell them that it's not impossible, no matter where you come from in the United States. Anyway, there's a way to do it.
Absolutely.
And speak to that. That is definitely something I'm super passionate about. Is helping young people get through. And I was kind of a dumb country person. I didn't even know it was going on. I just kind of was. I had nothing to lose, to go to college and all that. So I was like, hey, why not?
Yeah.
Nobody was pushing me, and I didn't feel particularly driven. I just was like, I'd much rather do this than be a blue collar worker, digging ditches. And now looking back on it, those guys probably make more money than I do.
Yeah.
So, I'm super passionate about kids at least trying to go to college if they can. Encouraging kids to do it and that sort of thing.
So do you think that those words from your guidance counselor echo in your ears today? And when you're dealing with the youth, you vow to not make that same mistake in telling somebody they can't do something?
Totally, man. And I didn't even remember that scene until much later in life.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just sitting around one day and I was thinking, I was remembering that, basically gave me bad advice, you know?
Right.
And ever since then that's been stuck in my mind as an adult. And I remember when it happened, how it happened. And but I didn't remember it for years, which is weird.
Yeah. I dare say that's almost criminal for someone in that position that has to talk to kids and influence them would set, give them a challenge. Like that,
totally.
I mean, that's not cool.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I also came from a town that had 6 cotton mills. So basically the entire infrastructure of the municipality, whether from schools to stores, all of it was basically built around the cotton mills.
Yeah.
And so I think, looking back on it now, I think those people might have been incentivized to try to put kids into the mill,
Yeah, they're just feeding them into the system.
That's what I think, looking back on it.
Yeah. So let's rewind. You're from Georgia.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
I'm from Middle Georgia, hour and 15 minutes straight south of Atlanta.
Okay.
If you drew a triangle between Atlanta, Columbus, and Macon, it'd be right in the middle.
Okay.
It's called Thomaston, Georgia, Upson County. It's on Highway 19. Highway 19 runs from Atlanta to Tallahassee.
Okay.
That's if you're ever going to Florida and you want to get off the interstate, get on Highway 19.
Georgia, we may have done that once.
Georgia, back in the 90s, we had a governor who's like, we're going to take every state highway, we're going to 4-lane them with a beautiful median, and you're going to have these 30, 40-mile stretches with no stop signs because we're going to try to incentivize the growth of these rural towns and things. Well, that didn't happen. Actually, those towns all have less people now than they did before.
But they got beautiful roads.
God almighty. The roads are amazing in Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been to a state that has better highway infrastructure.
Yeah.
Plus they have Atlanta, which is a mega city, kicking off who knows how many billions of dollars in road taxes, through the fuel tax and all that. So they really have more money than they can spend. Like, one of my criticisms of North Carolina, I won't say my criticism of Hendersonville or Henderson County because, Hendersonville only owns its roads. Yeah. And then the state owns all the other roads. If it's not a city road, the state owns it. In Georgia, it's the opposite. You have city roads, you have county roads, then you have state roads.
Right.
And, like our roads look shabby. There's you can't even, half the roads are in, you can't even see the curb.
Yeah.
Because there's so much dirt.
Right.
There ain't a curb in Georgia that looks like that.
Right.
Nowhere.
Right.
I mean, they basically, because they have a lot of money and maybe we don't have that here. I mean, we have Raleigh and Charlotte and I don't understand why we can't do a better job. So sorry about going off on that rant.
And then you drive into South Carolina and then the roads fall off even more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have.
And some of the highest road fatalities in South Carolina, too. I
wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. So Thomaston, Georgia.
Yeah. Thomaston, Georgia.
Okay.
It was a mill town. It's on the Flint River. The Flint River is a big river, drains half of Georgia. You have the Chattahoochee, you have the Savannah.
Yep.
Those are on either side of the state. And in the middle is the Flint.
Okay.
And it flows all the way down to Apalachicola Bay.
Okay.
And I grew up fishing on the river and canoeing, and I still go back home.
All American childhood.
Yeah, I still go back home, and my buddies and I still do it, even though most of us can't get in and out of a canoe anymore, hardly.
I feel that.
We all switched to sit on top kayaks because they're much easier to get in and out of. And you don't feel crippled when you've been in one for an entire day. Yeah. But we'll put in the river and we'll go down and camp, do the 2-3 nights in a row.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's cool.
But Georgia, I go back home now. Those fields that I used to play in that were all corn and all that, of course, are now all forests. And they're having a bit of a revival in that area because it's commutable to Atlanta. Atlanta is surrounded by all these counties. Those are the metro counties. Yeah. And I think you had some experience in Georgia, right? Savannah?
I lived half my life in Savannah.
Yeah. So, you had the big counties surrounding Atlanta, and the growth went from county to county to county to county.
Yeah.
And now it's going outside that loop of counties into those next counties.
Right. Yeah. My brother lives in Salisbury, North Carolina, which is, on a good day, 45 minutes from downtown Charlotte. And that's already becoming, bedroom community for Charlotte. And I guess that's just happening everywhere in the United States.
Yeah.
It's just the concentric rings around these big cities are just growing and growing.
Right. There's a lot of effort to try to turn people back towards the cities.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's working.
Yeah. Well, look, people live here, work in Nashville, work in Greenville, and vice versa.
Yeah. I have a friend. She lives in Landrum, South Carolina. Works here, goes back and forth.
Yeah.
A lot cheaper to buy a house down in Landrum, South Carolina.
Just a little bit.
than it is here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Henderson County's got some problems when it comes to affordability. That's for sure.
Yeah. My
last house, I lived in it here for 3 years, and it doubled in value.
Wow.
Doubled. Thank God for me. It's a little blessing from God as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But, a normal person ain't buying that house. Yeah. They're just not, they can't afford it.
It's hard. It's a good game to get into, but it's just hard to get into the game.
Yes. And there a lot of things it seems to be harder and harder to be a normal average human anymore, to afford it anyway. Mm-hmm. It's getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah.
And, this sounds like a couple of old guys sitting around, and my son.
And we are.
Yeah. So my son, this is a funny thing, not funny, but interesting being you and I are similar age. With social media, I had no idea what life was like for my parents. Yeah. There wasn't reels and videos of how great things were in the 60s and 50s,
right? To
basically convince me that my era was terrible, right? Well, kids today have that. So, my son was on this thing one time about how things are so much better when you were a kid. There weren't cameras everywhere, and you would get in trouble, and the sheriff would just say, "Don't do it again," And now, if you get in trouble, it's on your record forever, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Yeah, that's true. It really is." But what are you gonna do about it? Now, you got to live in the world that you're born into.
Absolutely.
And I just kept saying that you got to, because now all of his gripes and complaints were totally justified and true. It's but. Had I known how much better things were in the 50s and 60s, quote unquote better,
right?
There were a lot of things that weren't better, but maybe, you could afford a mill worker could buy a house and a car, have 3 kids.
Yeah.
You can't do that today.
Yeah. A house cost $5 in a Snickers bar.
That's right.
Then, right?
Yeah. Literally a car was $1,500 brand new.
Yeah.
And now a new car is $40,000. So, and he's like, money's not worth what it was. And I was like, yeah. So it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so what?
Do you remember you had to arrange to meet a buddy somewhere at a certain time. And if they didn't show up, you went home.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And I think kids today just stay home and they say, forget it.
Yeah. There's a lot of
devices.
There's a lot of weird social things. But then again, as a couple of old dudes trying to judge all these young people, and not, we're not doing it in a bad way, but I'm just saying observing, let's say observing, not judging. Judging is a negative connotation, but observing. One of the things that's interesting watching my son, man, they have gone native. He barely uses a phone. He doesn't have any social media. None of his friends do. They think that's all stupid. They're just checking out.
Wow.
It's interesting.
So it's sort of not a regression, but maybe this has gone too far. And
Yes.
let's bring it back to the basics.
Yeah. And, they still call each other on their cell phones and stuff, but, man, really, really basic, and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And
well, in the grand scheme of things, the iPhone's been around for what, since late 2000s?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a big chunk of our history timeline,
right.
But it has been all consuming these
Yes.
past 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I have heard that there has been a return to religion with a lot of younger folks.
Sure.
That there's also been a return to the trade schools
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. There has been a little bit of a return to that. Do you think that maybe people are craving that community, craving the primal urge to connect with their fellow man?
I think when we look back on the last 10 years, historically, we're going to see it as some weird sociological, I don't know of a good analogy. It's going to be, I think we're going to look back on it as a very weird time.
Yeah.
When people were, our generation and the boomers and then the younger people, everybody's trying to adjust to this new reality. And a lot of things went kind of weird, a lot of the social media tropes and I just think that it was a natural thing that had to happen. And now it's kind of settling down a little bit. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
Now you can, if you get on the internet, you could get real dark real quick, but I think I don't know. I'm inherently positive, and I'm pro people and I want this world that my son's growing up in to be better than my world. And I think it is actually, if you take a step back and you don't get your brain sucked out by your iPhone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Instagram and all the other things that are so distracting.
Yeah. Are you an optimist?
Oh yeah. I think as any good Marine, I'm also very skeptical. Yeah. But I'm ultimately optimistic. Right? Yeah. Like, I don't think there's any battle you can't win. I don't think that, I don't think you ever give up. Yeah. I think that, you accept your defeats, you learn from them and move on. Yeah. I'm pragmatic in that way.
I give everybody 10 or 20 seconds. And after that, it's okay. You're either this or you're that. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't like that about myself, but it protects me from things, I feel.
Yeah, I like to think of it as a categorization. You just categorize things, people, situations. If you've ever, like you and I both been in the military, we were taught situational awareness. And, most people just walk through the world without any situational awareness. Yeah. Right. And so I like, and also if you grew up anywhere where everybody's always fighting like all the time, like parties, or if your parents argued a lot, you get this real sense of like vibes. Yeah. And you add that to military style situational awareness, and you walk in a room and you're like, something ain't right. Yeah. I got to get out of here.
You got to listen to those.
And the person you're with is like, what? It's like, no, I got to go. We need to get out of here. Yeah. I don't know what it is. There's something going on, and it probably is untrue most of the time, but I do think that's super important to listen to. Yeah. And like to your point, you meet a person, you instantly process what you think they need, they want. Yeah. What's going on with them? Is this somebody I can deal with, work with? Yeah. And that's not being judgmental. Right.
That's the important distinction. Yeah. I'm not trying to exclude those people from, other than to size it up and to evaluate what the situation that I'm walking into, because everybody has their own different life, and you're walking around this world where everybody has their own agendas, their own priorities. So when you step into a situation, you might be, in someone else's sphere of priority or agenda. Mm-hmm. So
I like Mad Dog Mattis's quote.
Yeah.
Like, basically, the quote is roughly, be respectful to everybody you meet, but have a plan to kill them. Right.
That's great.
That's military situational awareness.
Yeah. My wife is very trusting, is very optimistic, she's the sweetest person. And I'm kind of jaded. Yeah. So when we enter a situation and I tell her I don't feel comfortable, she trusts me in that, which is good.
But she also probably, in a lot of situations, balances that out for you, smooths it out, helps you get over
she makes
that.
me a better person.
Yeah, it helps you get over your anxiety about a room full of people that you don't trust, or you just a situation you don't like, or whatever. And so it balances out, and that's what makes a really great couple and relationship, is when both of you have different disparate talents and skills and all that, and when you mix them together, they work really good.
She's made me much more diplomatic. I had a hard time with that before.
Well, that's something that being in the Marine Corps is, because you don't put up with BS.
Yeah.
And you don't tolerate shenanigans or messing around or goofing off unless you're the one doing it.
Exactly.
Right? So if I'm doing it, that's great. In fact, I particularly am skilled at skating and getting out of work. And
the term I had.
Remember that term?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I saw a funny AI generated meme. It was 3 Marines, and they're on ice skates, and they're in that pose where they're racing in the indoor skating rink. Mm-hmm. And they all had Lance Corporal.
Lance bars. Corporal. It's always a Lance Corporal. Skating, to those who don't know, is slacking.
Yeah, you're basically sliding out of a situation, going out of work. Yeah, pretending, hiding, getting out of work.
Yeah,
and the Marines basically have 99% of their time is downtime, so they fill it out with work. Yep. Usually tedious cleaning, and so
a lot of cleaning.
It becomes
a lot of polishing.
It becomes kind of a skill to learn how to avoid those. We call them working parties, right?
Yep. Which is an oxymoron, isn't
exactly it? Exactly right. The gunnery sergeant comes in. I need 3 Lance Corporals for a working party.
Yep.
And meanwhile, you've painted yourself the color of the walls, so you can camouflage and they can't see you.
Yep. So has that stuck with you in life? Do you make your bed every morning? Do you?
Yeah, I do. And I told my son, I was like, it really, if you're neat, even if that's not your particular natural state,
right?
I've met plenty of people who are perfectly clean, but they're just messy. They leave all their stuff laying around and all that. It's like, that is not good for your mental state.
Yeah.
For most people, you may not know it's bothering you, but if you could just keep things, basically neat, it'll just, and do it first thing in the morning. Jordan Peterson, if you ever listen to that guy, he's a podcaster and speaker, but that's one of his things is like, and he's aiming a lot of his messaging towards young men, because tends to be there seems to be a lot of disaffected youth
who need direction,
male, who need direction, and that's one of his things. Is like, get up in the morning and make your bed up. That way within the first 5 minutes of your day you've accomplished something, and when you come home that night, everything's neat. It looks good. You don't come home to a messy house, and then that just sets the tone for the day. And totally, and I did that naturally. Actually, probably, now that I think about it, probably wasn't naturally. It's probably because I was made to do it as a kid.
Yeah.
Wasn't allowed to be messy.
So you had a military style childhood in Thomaston?
I was raised by my grandmother, who was a hard ass, basically. And she didn't tolerate any goofing off, or, in fact, that I was joking with my son one day. I was like, when I was a kid, if you didn't want to be seen by a grown up, because if they saw you, they're going to make you do something, work. Yeah.
Just like the gunnery sergeant.
That's right. And so as soon as you shove some breakfast in your face in the summer, when you're out of school, you just ran as far as you could get away from the house.
Right.
Even if you had to go way around the back of the barn and just sit back there all day.
Never tell anybody you're bored.
That's right. And never let them see you without doing something.
Yeah.
So, and so I probably got a lot of that in my raising as a kid. I'm sure I probably, everybody, that's where the word mean comes from, is a sociological term. Like whatever your grandparent taught you, save your mason jars and stick them in the closet, even if you never use them. And then you're doing it, and then your kid sees you doing it, and they're doing it. That's what a true meme was before social media memes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like a psychological thought that is passed from and there's negative ones and positive ones, right? Yeah. So the poverty mentality is the negative one, teaching people that my grandmother used to say this too. us poor folks just can't expect much more than this, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And those are negative, things that get passed down. And I never paid him. That one didn't ever sink into me. So,
well, it sounds like none of that kind of talk sank in with you.
I think I don't, it's not anything that I did. I just happen to be inherently either, I don't know if you'd say positive, but I just don't listen to negative. I don't ever believe anybody telling me I can't do something I don't think that I've accomplished, I'm not like some super accomplished person. I think coming from where I came from, having got a master's degree and working for a university, that's nothing to sneeze at, but I'm not a senator or CEO of a company or anything, but I'm pretty pleased with how I've done, especially considering where I started out. And, and I go, like I said, I still got old friends from back in the old days from high school that I go visit, and we've all done well. Now, we did grow up in a generation when the opportunity was there. The 80s and 90s were probably the most prosperous time for middle class ever. It just was, for whatever reasons. I mean, there's probably tons of financial reasons and regulatory reasons and all of that. But it was pretty easy to live back in those days on a little bit of money, and I don't know that it's like that now. I think it's much harder because, think about how much rent was when you were a kid.
Right.
I mean, when I was in college, I paid $200 for a bedroom in school. For, me and 3 or 4 guys had a house. It was probably $800 a month.
Yeah.
Paid $200 each.
Yeah.
I mean, I could make that working part-time. I used to work at a garden center, and that pretty much, it would take care of my rent, and then I had plenty of money left over to go out and hang out, and you just can't do that. It's very hard to do that anymore.
Yeah, I remember I paid $400 a month for an apartment in Savannah. And I remember I hit it on the slots, and I made that month's rent, and I was so stoked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember going out in Athens, Georgia to a place called O'Malley's, and they had nickel beers. This was in college, one night a week. And that was a terrible idea on their part.
Oh, yes. And a terrible idea on the part of the people partaking in it, but seemed like the thing to do.
But, now, you go out, a beer is $8. You can't afford to go out anymore. A normal person can't, not regularly. And, I think that that's part of the problem going on right now locally. I'm friends with a lot of people that own venues around here, and a lot of them aren't doing great. There's just not enough business, and people can't afford to go out. There's probably too many people doing the same thing for a town of 125,000 people. And if you think out of that 125,000, how many people are going out?
You're talking the county.
In this county, right?
Yeah, 125,000.
Yeah. How many people are actually going out? Maybe 5,000?
Yeah.
Regularly? I go out a lot just because that's just what I do. It's fun. But there's very few people that go out more than once a week. And then most people only go out like once a month. And I know quite a few businesses that are not doing great. And they were doing great because they were here early. But now there's more and more of these same businesses doing the exact same thing they're doing. And everybody tends to like the new stuff more. Just the way it always is. A new restaurant opens, everybody goes to the new restaurant. Right. And so the older businesses are having a real hard time hanging on. And they'll all tell you it's your local people that keep you alive.
Yeah, it's true.
We're a tourist town most of the time. All it takes is one little thing to just knock tourism out. So now the hurricane wasn't that little, but it killed tourism for a year, basically. Right. People lost an entire year's income. They redid 7th Avenue. Those stores over there almost didn't make it during that time because
some of them didn't.
And some of them didn't, right? And so all these stores and all these breweries, wineries, restaurants, all the things that depend on people spending their loose money, their free money, they're struggling right now.
We went somewhere for dinner Friday night, high-end restaurant. It'll remain nameless, but it was, told you, it's the loudest.
I love it.
Podcast studio in Hendersonville. Let's just say it was high-end. Yeah. And, that's the kind of place that if tourists aren't showing up, you need to have that local turnout.
A local can't spend $20 on a cocktail.
Yeah,
very often.
Yeah,
and it's just too expensive.
Yeah, it was less than desirable, and everybody around us were also local, and they also had a similar situation. And it's really unfortunate for these businesses. I know they're having to do more with less. It's hard to hire good people to work there. Their costs are going up, which make them raise prices for us. What's going on in this area? Is it simply a matter of this is a retirement area and it just elevates everything?
So think about this. This is something I observe a lot because I go out a lot. Yeah. So we are a retirement community, and most people live up to their means. Most people do not live under their means and have a lot of free cash flow. But those retirees, and God bless you all. I'm not talking negative about you as a group. I'm just saying this is my observation. And it's probably just a small percentage of people. But they will go to a place and they'll say there's music that night. And they'll fill the place up. And they'll all buy one drink apiece. And so they're taking up table space for our brewery owner. And they're there all night, literally all night, drinking one beer. The brewery owner, although the place is full, didn't make any money. And then if they're paying the band, they're actually losing money. So I think there's a lot of that going on where people are they're utilizing what seems to be cheap entertainment and spending not enough money to help out the businesses. Yeah, I see that. I see that a lot. Wineries, to tell you the same thing. I'm friends with a bunch of the winery owners. They're like, they'll come in here. Sometimes they come in buses from neighborhoods and things. And they'll all order one glass of wine, take up a table for the whole night. And meanwhile, the customers who might actually spend some money come in, turn around and leave because there's no place to sit.
Well, it's kind of like the coffee shop business model. It's, you're selling coffee drinks for anywhere from $3 to $13 for these foo-foo drinks. Mm-hmm. And then people just camp out there for 9 hours on their laptop. How do they make money off that?
Well, that's the same situation. Yeah. And that was the first place I ever heard about it or saw it, was those sorts of places. And then as I've gotten to know these venue owners, they've all have the same complaint, But in this case, people are there consuming the music that's free because they don't have to pay to get in, and they're only buying the one drink. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. So this might bring us around to, say, agritourism, so that, I mentioned earlier that I work for the Henderson County Extension office, and we work with the farmers, we work with the nursery growers, the lawn care people, anybody that's in the agricultural space. We educate them. We don't charge them any money. Right. We provide services for them, educational, consulting, technical services.
How do you make money off that?
We don't make money. We're a state agency. Okay. So we don't.
So your paycheck is from the state of North Carolina?
Yes, but actually the money comes from, what's the ringing sound?
That's the arm on the parking garage.
Oh, wow.
That goes up. When
these microphones are amazing. They're picking up sounds from 2 blocks away. They're really good. What was I saying?
You were talking about you get paid by the state.
So Henderson County is super generous in that they sponsor our office. And there's a mix. The reason the cooperative is an extension is that it's a cooperative agreement between counties and state. And so, counties have less money. State pays more percentage-wise. Counties have more money, end up tending to paying more percentage-wise. Our county happens to be, one, very supportive of agriculture. Two, we happen to have a pretty strong tax base. We're probably the richest county west of Charlotte.
Is that right?
By a long shot. And so we have. I mean, we were so lucky after the storm. We had money to just write a check to start cleaning up. I mean, tens and tens of millions of dollars was the contract to do that. We hope that FEMA is going to pay us back, but basically, John Mitchell started writing checks. And that's why we got cleaned up so fast, because we had money in the bank, a rainy day fund, right?
And you go to Asheville and it's still
they didn't have that
cluster.
Money.
You know what?
Yeah. What was I saying? I'm easily distracted.
That's okay. I am too. So you're kind of at an intersection of the county, the state, and the college. Or the
right. And you ask us about making money. Well, we provide our services for free. And mostly we're just doing technical support. Farmers are very capable. They know more about their business than I do. But there are certain things I know more about than they do. So I'm a plant pathologist and an entomologist and a plant health expert. So when they run into a situation that's weird, something they've never seen before, or some disease, some insect problem that they're not sure about, that's where I step in and help. That's kind of my specialty to do.
So it's sort of like a situation where a rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing. They assume that money it'll come back in agricultural production.
Yes. In fact, I brought a flyer because I knew that I would need to talk about this. So this is we made this rack card at our office. So there are 520 farms in Henderson County on 32,743 acres of land. The crop value, this is just the crops being sold. And that's 187 million. If you add in all the ancillary things, you're pushing like 900 million. That's shipping, storage, processing, packaging, that sort of thing. We have 5,400 jobs here. Every year we have new farmers starting. So we think there's probably at least 280 new farmers in the county. And then our top 10 agricultural products, believe it or not, greenhouse is number one.
Is that right?
Well, it's super high end and super highly productive.
Is that what you see when you head out towards Mills River?
Yeah, all the greenhouses. Yeah, there's Van Wingerden. That's kind of the older, more established, very large, very technically forward-looking organization that sells things like poinsettias and haying baskets and all these things you see at Lowe's and Home Depot and stuff like that. Apples is number two. So greenhouse is 59 million. Apples is 38 million. Turf is 37 million.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's just growing grass and selling it off as sod.
And does this turf go?
It's regional.
The country?
Yeah, it's regional. Yeah. So think about we're 250 miles from half the people of the nation, right? If you think about it, with all our big population centers nearby. So we're kind of ideally situated for selling agricultural products to Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, Washington, D.C. is, all the way up there.
Right.
So turf is a big one, high dollar per square foot. Tomatoes, we're number one in tomatoes in the state. So you've been out Mills River, you've seen all those giant, vast fields of tomatoes. We grow peppers. We do a lot of small fruits nowadays, brambles. So your raspberries and blackberries, but also other berries as well. And grapes is another big one that we've
Hence
big crop.
The
wineries. Yeah. So we have an American viticultural area designated by the federal government, by the USDA, which is the same as a Simi Valley, or what's the other California one?
Napa Valley.
Napa Valley. Yep. Those, you can't say you're a Napa Valley wine unless you're within this geological region.
Right. Like Champagne, it's got to come from the Champagne region.
We're the crest of the Blue Ridge. That's the name of our AVA.
Okay. How many regions are there in North Carolina?
I think we may be the only one.
Is that right?
Maybe the only one on the East Coast. They're pretty rare, and they take a tremendous So shout out to Burnt Shirt and St. Paul Winery. They're kind of the two original wineries. They footed the bill, for one, because they had to hire a geologist and spend years doing a big research paper about the uniqueness of our soils here. Then they had to go to Washington and work the infrastructure up there, the bureaucracy, to get it through.
Oh, yeah.
So it took 10 years to get us designated as an AVA, but it's actually a big deal that we have that here in our county. It's a real big deal when it comes. And wineries are opening up all the time. There's a new one opening up in the Big Willow Valley over there, other side of Canoga. Okay, between Canoga Conference Center and Etowah. Corkscrew Willows over there. I think we have 9 wineries and 12 breweries, or 12 wineries. It's something like that. It's like.
So what is it about this area? Is it the altitude? Is it the way that the weather hits the region?
That's a great question. We are actually in the greatest place in the world to grow stuff. Yeah, one of the greatest places in the world. So it's a number of things. Plants need temperature, light, and water, right? And nutrients. Those are the things that they need. So when it comes to light, we're sunnier more hours per day, per year than even Greenville is, by a lot. I don't know if you ever noticed, since you moved here, it's always like windy and I noticed this growing up in Middle Georgia, we're closer to the clouds, 2,000 feet closer to the clouds, and they're always like zooming by. It's like we're on the edge of this of the Blue Ridge Escarpment. So there's a lot of dynamic weather.
Yeah.
It's always blowing through. We're just far enough south that we catch Gulf stuff, and we're just far enough north we catch, polar stuff. So suffice it to say, we have more hours of sunlight. So that's the fuel for plant growth, right? Yeah. That's how plants make their food, through photosynthesis. And so places like this are ideal for greenhouses.
Yeah.
Another thing I noticed, and you may have noticed this, but didn't because you're not necessarily a plant person, it didn't click with you.
I am not a green thumb.
But plants are just more beautiful here. I mean, the colors are richer. Let's say a cone flower, echinacea. Echinacea you probably know of as being an herbal thing, but it's also a beautiful flower.
Right.
It's a purple flower about this big.
That's a cone flower?
Cone flower. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So, cone flower, echinacea. If you plant that in middle Georgia, where I'm from, it'll come up in May when the soil warms up. It'll flower and look beautiful until July 4th when it's 100 degrees and it hasn't rained in 2 weeks, and then it's dead. It just dries up, right? Yeah. I have many years had echinacea still blooming at Thanksgiving here. I mean, plants just bloom and bloom and bloom, and they just never stop blooming here. So they're so much more productive in that way. Yeah. So we have a lot of cut flower farms here that are starting. That's a new thing where people take a quarter of an acre, half an acre, and plant flowers and sell those. And those flowers just grow like gangbusters. Yeah. And they're productive. They just keep reproducing and reproducing and reproducing.
Yeah.
So we're in the greatest place in the world to grow. We get lots of water, lots of rain. And, we're the wettest. Transylvania County is the wettest county on the East Coast.
Is that right?
And it rivals the Pacific Northwest many years. Sometimes it's more rain.
So it's like a rainforest.
It is basically a rainforest. It's a temperate rainforest. And we benefit by being on the edge of that. All of that water is basically breathed out of the Pisgah forest. Right? The trees release water out of their leaves. Yep. They pull it up out of the ground, release it out of their leaves. You can stand in Mills River and look up at Mount Pisgah in the summertime. First thing in the morning, the sun coming up, it starts to warm up. You'll see a little puff of cloud here and there start. And then they just get bigger and bigger. And by the afternoon, they kind of come south towards us, and they rain mostly on Transylvania County, but a lot in Mills River. Mills River gets more rain than Hendersonville does. So that just makes this area plenty of water, amazing amounts of sunshine. The soils here are incredible. It's hard to believe, but the Appalachian Mountains used to look like the Rockies.
A long, long time ago.
200 million years ago. So
a little before iPhones.
That's right. Yeah. So if Mount Pisgah was probably 14 to 16,000 feet tall. And now it's 4,000 or 5,000 feet tall. Where did all that rock go? It basically got ground by time into dust, and it filled the valleys up. So if you go out west, or you go to the Alps or the Himalayas, you'll notice mountains are very tall and peaky and pointy, and the valleys are very deep and narrow and pointy. Well, if you look around here, the mountains are all rounded off, and the valleys are all big and flat between the mountains. Right. So what used to be the mountains is now in the valleys.
That's where the mountains went.
And we have got the most beautiful soil here you've ever seen. And I mean, it is so easy to grow here compared to other places. If land were cheaper, people would just be moving here just to be farmers. But they're not. They're having to go out to North Vashville and go out to McDowell County. And those counties are actually, a lot of farmers are moving out there, people who want to be farmers.
There are some that speculate that our mountains used to be connected to like the Scottish Highlands and the Atlas Mountains in Africa.
Yes. Yeah, all those continents the Atlantic Ocean wasn't there. They were, those Europe, Africa, North America, South America were all smashed together. And when they pulled apart, it stretched. And that's why the Scotch Irish liked this area so much, because it looks
reminded them of their home.
It looks like Scotland. And very similar geography, and even almost similar weather, because the Gulf Stream carries all that heat up through the Atlantic. If it weren't for the Gulf Stream, Northern Europe would be frozen.
So some of the oldest mountains on Earth, some of the oldest rivers on Earth too here.
I like to say, I don't know if I coined this phrase. You know how once you say something long enough, you think you might have came up with it, but I'm sure I'm not clever enough to think about this.
We'll credit it to you.
Okay. But we're the Saudi Arabia of water.
We, as in
a region.
This region?
Region. Southeast. We're sitting on a very, very, very valuable resource that we take for granted.
Yeah.
And that we're currently spoiling through many things. One of my big pushes is environmentally friendly landscaping. So the way we work as educators, because I'm essentially an educator, I'm the equivalent of like an assistant professor at the NC State. And my job is to educate people, and I do that through educate the commercial people, so all my landscapers and nurseries and people like that, but I also educate the homeowners. And that's actually more homeowners than there are farmers, right? So that's a big part of my business. I get a lot of calls and questions from home gardeners. I do the Gardening in the Mountains radio show and podcast, which generates a lot of attention, lots of questions, very active on our website, NC State. The Henderson County website that's provided by NC State that I've got 374 articles on there, 262 episodes of Gardening in the Mountains. All of that generates a lot of homeowner interest. So we get lots of homeowner calls.
Well, every homeowner with a garden is a farmer, right?
That's right. And that's what I try to, I have my colleagues that are out on the eastern part of the state, and they got 30,000 acres of peanuts and soybeans and cotton in their county. And that's a lot. Well, we got way more than that in just lawns and landscape plants, right? And then if you add agriculture on top of that. So environmentally friendly landscaping is one of the like overarching topics. So everything I do, I try to tie into that. I told you earlier, my specialty is plant health by being an entomologist and a plant pathologist. I was also a practicing arborist for a long time. And so trees, I'm pretty passionate about trees, tree health, and taking care of trees. So that factors in there. So I do tree classes. I'm going to do a Conserving Carolina talk on oaks. And I read this cool book called Oak, the Frame of Civilization. And it was basically how oak trees, everybody thinks it's wheat that settled humanity. It was actually acorns. Because before people were eating grasses, they were eating acorns.
Is that right?
And so sacred groves in Europe.
I've never eaten an acorn.
It's actually a choice nut. And there are still cultures, Japanese, Koreans, Native Americans, India. There are people in India that eat acorns still, roast them, eat them like roasted peanuts. But you can boil them and make meal, and dry it, and that preserves. So hunter-gatherers could gather enough acorns in 2 weeks to feed them for 2 years. So that was like when the Garden of Eden, when the bountiful, plentiful, this is before there were too many people, and there was all this bounty that was it just fell from the sky, all this food. But what would happen was, and this now I've gotten another tangent, but and I'm talking about the class I'm going to teach down in Rutherford County at the Walnut Creek Preserve coming up. And I call this class Oaks, the tree of civilization. And oak trees basically settled humanity. So people, hunter-gatherers would meet every year for these 2 weeks when the acorns fell, set up a camp. Everybody would collect them, roast them, store them, package them up in big baskets and haul them back home. They would swap daughters and there would be marriages happening, and then everybody would go away, and that happened throughout the temperate parts of the world, because there's oaks all the way around the northern hemisphere through the temperate areas. And so if everybody's coming to this grove every year, but they're also bringing like some blackberries with them and maybe some grass seed that they found, they pick the biggest berries, they eat them, they defecate them off the edge of camp. They just selected a variety and planted it. So the next year when they come back, that plant, they harvest the biggest ones off there, eat those. And so that's where, an apple started out as a little teeny tiny rose hip, and now it's this big.
Cycle of life.
Selection.
Aren't there like 10,000 different varieties of apples?
There are many, many, many varieties of apples.
What is that about? Because most people don't know that.
Yeah, apples are just genetically fluid, meaning they're easily manipulatable.
Okay. You
can breed them pretty easily. They crossbreed readily. We have an accidental cross that happened here that just came up as a seedling in a field back in the, I forget, it was 40s or 30s. And it's called the King Luscious. And that apple is literally as big as a kid's head. I mean, I've got a picture of one on a scale. It was 2 pounds. It's this big.
And that started here?
Yeah, somebody found it as a random seedling.
Wow.
So, just genetics, and if you take 10,000 seeds out of any wild plants and plant them, they're all going to grow up to be different, because they're just like humans, right? Everyone's an individual. You got short ones, fat ones, skinny ones, tall ones, dark green ones, light green ones, ones that produce crazy fruit, some that don't produce much fruit at all. And so if you plant 10,000 seeds, wild pollinated seeds, You can go through there and pick out the top 10. Right. Then you can take those, breed those together, and try to up the favorable things. And so getting all the way sidetracked, all the way back around to environmentally friendly landscaping, I call where we live our built environments. And our built environments have tended to skew towards very environmentally unfriendly, pavement, poor water management off sites, soil loss, soil compaction and erosion, and then planting non-native plants that end up being invasive and invading our native areas, and then impervious surfaces that reflect light and hold heat. So then you get heat islands. So all of it adds up to very unfriendly, negative repercussions for the environment, right? Especially when you have thousands and tens of thousands of these structures all built environmentally poorly, then that actually changes the climate and makes the local climate different. It's hotter, right? I used to live in the Cayuga area, and it would be 8 degrees cooler out there than it was in Hendersonville every day when I drive home. And so that just goes to show you the heat island effect and all that. So what I always say is there's a better way. We can create our built environments in an environmentally friendly way. Yeah. So that means really good water management. So we saw in the hurricane what poor water management did, right? And combined with poor soil management. So cutting into the sides of the mountains, just letting the water run wherever it ran, right? Yeah. Not directing it properly. That's called hydrology, the movement of water through the environment.
It's a science.
It is a science. Yeah. I took a terrible class called hydrology, soils and hydrology in college. It was awfully hard, like many of my college courses were. But all of these things, trees. So trees, you've ever noticed how when it starts to rain and you're driving, the road will be wet, and then under the tree it'll be dry, and then it's wet, right? Mm-hmm. That's because that tree is capturing water. And a big, giant, mature tree can capture hundreds of gallons of water before the first drop ever hits the ground. And so rain is falling at a very high speed. And if it just hits bare soil, it loosens the soil and causes erosion. But if it hits the tree, now it's got to run down the tree through the bark and then down into the soil. And then once it hits a mature forest with leaf litter on the floor, water's got to leak all the way through all of that to finally make it to a stream, right? Right. So it can rain like hell here. These streams in Hendersonville will be muddy and gross and dirty. You go to the North Mills River in Mills River that comes straight out of the Pisgah Forest. Even after all of that rain, it's still clear because the forest is a giant filter for that water. And so we can do things in the environment to help, right? One is to plant trees that get big. People didn't used to care how big a tree got back in the old days. And that's how you ended up with these beautiful old cities like Boston with mega trees, or Charleston, Savannah, all of these places with giant. Nobody cared that oak you planted in the front yard one day is going to be covering the whole lot, right? And now we look at it, we're like, oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah. People chain themselves to those trees, right? That same person who chained themselves to that tree probably wouldn't plant an oak in their own front yard because they ought to get too big and damage my house one day. It's like, who cares? Right? It's like, we'll worry about that later. Yeah. Let's plant the trees that are going to be real trees. And what's happened in the nursery business is that we've selected all our trees to wedge them into landscapes. So, a native red maple, which in its natural form is like an oak. It's a giant, beautiful, spreading shade tree. All of our cultivars of red maples, all are narrow trees that don't spread and all hold their branches straight up in the air. And that's because we're quote unquote designed to be street trees, right? Nobody cared about that in the old days. Right. Street trees got huge, broke the sidewalks, but covered the streets, shaded the pavement, did all of that work. I call it environmental work. An October Glory red maple, which is kind of the most popular, or an autumn blaze or autumn sunset, red sunset. Any of those red maples, they will never shade more than X number of square feet underneath them. They don't hold much water because they're smaller, more diminutive sized trees. And, so when people, though it's a native though, but it's a selection of a native. So it's like, I always tell people, not every tree is the same. Not every tree does the same amount of ecological work. So making those good choices, good plant choices, planting native plants. These are plants that are from our region. Southeast is good. Western North Carolina is even better. if you can, stick to those. But the Southeast is good enough. As long as they're not from China and Japan and Korea or anywhere else in the world. We have most of our plants, our runaway invasive plants, kudzu.
You're not offended by the name of the podcast, are you?
What is it?
You're not offended by the name of the podcast?
Oh, no.
The Kudzu Project?
No. Kudzu, so growing up, I always tell people this because I teach an invasive plants course multiple times per year. And I always tell people, I didn't know kudzu wasn't from here. I played
it's everywhere.
Yeah, I played in kudzu fields when I was a kid, and I used to climb an old Chinese privet when I was. They were what grew in the fence rows, and it just everything around us was an invasive plant. Honeysuckle grew everywhere, right? That's from Japan. That's an invasive plant. So, and that's as southern as you can get now, right? Yeah.
Did you like the stuff when you were a kid, or have you grown to like it?
What, plants?
Yeah, plants, trees, agriculture.
Well, I grew up on what used to be a farm. It was kind of like wasn't a farm anymore. It was just what was left of a farm. And we still grew some corn and tomatoes in the garden and all that. I wasn't really that into plants, as a kid. I went to high school and I had an FFA teacher who took a bunch of us dumb, redneck country boys and showed us that you could grow plants in greenhouses. You can make money landscaping. And this is before, people hired landscapers or people to cut their grass, right? This was right when that was starting to happen in the early 90s, in the Southeast anyway. That's probably sure was happening elsewhere, but in the Southeast, that didn't become a thing. Like big landscape companies and all that didn't happen until more into the mid to late 90s. But he took us to University of Georgia and showed us just like we have this greenhouse at our high school. Look up here. They got all these greenhouses. There's a horticulture school. There's the ag school. So, interesting. Planted the seed. And then when
Pun intended.
Exactly. And then when I went to college, this is the sad fact. My grades weren't good enough to get in any other program except horticulture. Horticulture had the lowest requirements for GPA and SAT score. Now, my SAT scores were great, but my GPA was not because I didn't work hard.
Sounds very familiar to me.
And so I had to, and people will actually, a lot of people who are in the same situation would go in the hort school for one semester to get into UGA and then transfer to a different school. Because you could do that.
As a gateway drug.
Yes. But I was like, that's what I'll do. I'm going to go to UGA, so I'll just do that. I already know horticulture. And so I got there, and fortunately, two of my professors were the most famous horticulturists in the country at the time.
Wow.
They wrote all the books on trees and flowers that were popular and still used today, but back then they were famous, but they were also still just college professors. So working with the kids, we all worked in their greenhouses on their research projects, and looking back on it, I'm like, I just can't believe these guys would put up with guys like me who were, not necessarily academics, not academics, but we would work hard and that sort of thing. And they got me my first job out of college at a nursery. And so that kind of launched my career, my trajectory anyway. So essentially, I kind of just fell into it. Getting to answer your question, I didn't choose it. It kind of chose me, or fate chose it, or whatever.
So you got tired of shooting missiles off in the Marine Corps.
Yes.
And then you went into plants.
Yes.
And how long have you been here?
So I moved here back about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And my 10th anniversary will be January of next year of being local. Moved up here for the job. I was a county extension agent in Georgia at UGA. I was in mostly metro counties. I was in Gwinnett County when it was the fastest growing county in the country. And I was in Rockdale County. And I can tell you, and I tell people this because I give lots of talks, and I tell people all the time, I'm like the guy screaming from the rooftop. I'm like, I was in Gwinnett County when the farms went away. I've seen this happen before, and I can see it happening now. We lost 400 acres of farmland last year. And we know we lost it because they took it out of the agricultural tax conservation. Only reason you would do that is if you're changing the use of the land. And then that usually means they're selling it or developing it. So we're losing farmland. we gained trees for 100 years here. When Commodore Biltmore built the Biltmore House, there were no trees. It was, you can look at any picture of the construction, and especially if you can see the background, it's just logged mountains as far as you can see. That's why
they were all felled for construction.
Well, for the timber was harvested for the insatiable desire for wood.
Yeah.
Internationally. You can still find railroad tracks when you hike up in the woods, like the temporary railroad tracks that they built up in the Pisgah Forest. Yeah. So I have a good picture in my tree talk, my environmentally friendly tree talk that I do, where I've got a picture of a crazy guy flew a biplane in 1926 from Greenville up the escarpment, up the mountains, over Hendersonville, and then landed in Hendersonville. You can actually find a video of that on YouTube because they're doing it with a camera, like one of those old film cameras. And they land in Hendersonville and take the camera out, put it in a Model T, and then drive around Hendersonville.
Wow.
So it's really, you could see what Hendersonville looked like in 1926.
It's like an early version of Google Maps.
Yes. But the upshot is I was able to get a picture of Hendersonville looking probably from south to north, essentially. And so it's probably at about 1,000 feet. You're looking down, you can see the courthouse. You can see the hills back here where there's Laurel Park now up here. And then in the very, very background, you can just see the outline of the Mount Pisgah and where the parkway is, right? But the thing you can note, I also found, I was lucky enough to find the exact same picture from almost the exact same point. I don't know who took it. I just stole it off the internet. But of more recent. And the difference in tree cover is tremendous. There's way more trees now than there was then. Most ground that you could walk on was a farm. After it was logged, it was turned into agricultural land. And so for 100 years, we've been getting more trees, gaining trees. Now we're kind of going the opposite direction. Yeah. We're losing trees due to development. And the development that's happening is not environmentally friendly construction. Yeah. These apartments and condos and things that are going in, I mean, they're just basically bulldozing the place, stripping off all the topsoil, selling that, bulldozing it flat, compacting the soil, building these super cheap apartments, and then just throwing some plants down. And so, now all of that water is going to run off into the nearest stream. Those streams are all going to erode. The stream banks are going to collapse. They're doing that. You can go, if you get on the Acosta Trail and you walk up to where Appalachian Coffee is on Fifth Avenue, look at that creek. It's called Wash Creek. One of the little tributaries they fixed, they did a stream bank restoration there in the park that's right there, Laurel Green Park, and that withstood the flood. That construction that they took these steep banks, made them more like this. They V'd them out. They widened the channel so that the creek isn't restrained to this, because when it's restrained to a narrow channel, it flows faster, erodes more. And so you do this, so you V it out and then plant plants on it. So you can see like a repaired creek right next to this degraded creek. Creek is degraded. And that's the case all around. There's another big creek. I think it is still Wash Creek, but it's closer to Trailside. And I know all this because I walk it every day and I'm looking at all these creeks and trees and everything down through there. But it's super degraded, and that's from screwing up the hydrology, the management of the water on the land.
Grove Street was always flooded whenever it would rain, and they went in and did something as well.
So that's a stream bank restoration they're doing from Grove Street all the way to past Harris Teeter, all the way to Spartanburg Highway. Okay. And what they're doing again is they got rid of all the invasives, because invasives choke up these wetlands. Yeah. And they kind of screw up.
It almost creates a dam, doesn't it, in the river?
Yeah. And it creates this, it doesn't allow the system to work the way it's supposed to work. Hendersonville was once where the courthouse is, right? It's a hill. Yep. That was the only dry spot. And that was why it was chosen to be the...
Yeah, because you kind of go uphill from both sides as you go up to Main Street.
And all around it was a swamp. So where Publix and the Fresh Market, that's all built on top of a swamp. Harris Teeter, built on top of a swamp.
And you wonder why they flood.
Exactly.
Right?
Follow that swamp up. You go into Jackson Park. Jackson Park, all of that's a swamp. Go down Four Seasons. I had an old timer tell me that when she was a kid, you didn't even come to town if it was raining because you knew 64 was going to be underwater right there. Wow. And now they built the Four Seasons up, and it's up above the floodplain. I don't know that Sphinx. Unless they build that thing on stilts. It's got to be in the floodplain, right?
Yeah, you'd think.
I mean, right there off 7th Avenue. Yeah. Anyway,
there's a big lake right next to it.
Yes, and that's an impoundment to try to hold water. But if you go from there all the way to Blue Ridge Community College, all of that is swamp. Now that swamp's all been channelized, meaning they dug. If you look at it from Google Maps, you'll see it's got all these straight channels all the way from Jackson Park all the way up past through the old airport, past Blue Ridge Community College to try to drain it. Because if you didn't, the airport would be a marsh, Jackson Park would be a marsh, and so we've drained and channelized all these areas that used to absorb these storm flows, because that hurricane was not anything abnormal. It just hasn't happened in 100 years. It happened in 1916. If you want to see a great documentary, look at David Weintraub. He has the Center for Cultural Preservation. He created a movie called Come Hell or High Water about the 1916 flood. There were still people alive in the 80s when he made it, or early 90s. And he interviewed survivors. And now imagine back then that hurricane hitting and you had no idea it was coming. It just started raining and it never stopped. And the next thing you know, you wake up and half your houses and all your children are gone.
Yeah. I mean, we had warning systems and it still was devastating.
Yes. So, so that's 1916, 1920, and then 2024, right? Is when the hurricane 2024. So if you can go back in time, and it happened in the 60s, there was a big flood. The 40s, there was a huge flood, 1940s. And the earliest recorded one is in the 1780s.
Right, 1700s.
Yeah. So hurricanes hit us pretty regularly. And we have not... But it happens infrequently enough that we don't give it enough attention and pay it enough and don't prepare enough for it.
Do we ever learn our lesson?
Obviously not. I mean,
I'm talking big picture agriculture.
Well, all right. So let me just preface all this by saying that in all of what we said here today, I'm not trashing Henderson County, its leadership, or the city or anybody.
Your purpose is to educate.
Yes. I'm just saying that what I am saying, though, is that we are allowing things to get away from us. We have very powerful interests, and rightly so. We need housing, right? And so affordable housing, what's the most affordable? Big, giant apartment complexes.
And you can't kick people out.
No, and people are not going to stop coming. Yeah. There's not a lot of places left to build houses. So where are they building them? The sides of mountains. What's this big old thing over here, Stony Mountain, that you can see from all over town?
Yeah.
It's just like they poured cement over the whole side of the mountain to try to prop up a few houses up there. I mean, that stuff's crazy. I would say it shouldn't be allowed, but we're in the United States and private property rights are sacrosanct, and I believe in that too. I believe people should be able to do most of what they want to do, but on the aggregate, when all of this is added together, it actually adds up to a degrading environment. We're definitely a changing character. This county was primarily agricultural for so long, and we're losing farmland like crazy to development. And now we've come along now. We've got a farmland preservation program just getting started. It should have been done 20 years ago, but it didn't. And so, but we are getting it going. That's where the government kind of raises money to pay people the difference between what land would sell for development versus what it sells for as an ag property. Yeah. So that encourages people, like I could sell it to you if you wanted to continue my apple farm, I could sell it to you for a much lower price than it would be otherwise, right? And you could actually buy it. So that's the idea for the agricultural preservation. And I'm glad we're doing it, but it's, it takes a long time for that to get going, and it may be too late. Hopefully it's not. So, everything's just changing so rapidly locally that I was in a metro Atlanta county with completely unrestrained, completely Wild West kind of development. Gwinnett County, I mean, they would come in and bulldoze 300 acres, pancake flat, The next week, there would be paved streets with white pipes sticking up. And within 6 months, it'd be 1,000 houses. And then they'd go do the next one. That was pre-2008, right? And all that stopped at 2008. But I mean, I remember specifically having a horse farmer, and she was kind of a boutique horse farm, neighborhood around on one side, neighborhood on one side, neighborhood on one side, until she got surrounded. Everybody's complaining about the flies and the smell. And then she just left because it wasn't worth it anymore to do. And I'm afraid that's happening here. And I mean, it is happening here. I mean, if we're all going to be honest about it, it is happening here right now. We're losing our rural character. A lot of people are trying to stop it. We have county commissioners that are super passionate about it. We have our county managers passionate about preserving agriculture here in the county. But they're, up against a lot of powerful forces. I mean, and it's hard to do because there people have rights, and it's hard. Zoning is one of the few things that the government does when they tell somebody no, right? And so zoning regulations, they're real hard to get past and change and all of that. So, look at Mills River. I mean, Mills River is basically an industrial center now. At least the kind of the side of it towards the interstate. The side of it towards Brevard is rapidly filling up with neighborhoods and homes and all of that. So that 280 corridor is kind of like the next domino to fall. Apple farmers are all aging out, and nobody's stepping up to take over, And if my grandfather left me a farm and it was worth $150,000 an acre, I don't know that I'd want to make $40,000 a year raising apples, right? I might just cash out. We still have a very strong agricultural sector here, very strong. But if we don't work real hard, continue to work, we are working hard, but if we don't continue to work hard to protect it, we could easily see it vanish and go away.
What percentage of our county's output, economic output, is agriculture?
So now I've seen these numbers. I have a mental deficiency in where if any number I try to remember gets multiplied by 2. So I try not to quote too many numbers.
Yeah.
My brain is naturally hyperbolic.
Yeah, I'm not a mather.
Yeah, I'm not a mather. And I can be so sure of a number and then go back and, check my work later and go, God, I was off by a factor of 2. Why do I do this to myself? I think that agriculture is the number one industry in the county. I'm pretty sure it is.
It's a large chunk.
It's literally $1 billion. Agriculture here in one county. It's definitely the biggest industry in the state, and you're thinking that's with Boeing and all these other big, huge factories and companies that are in the state. So agriculture is still hugely important in North Carolina. North Carolina is in the top 5 states losing agricultural land. So that's a problem. And, I'm a history guy. I love history. I try in my talks, I always apologize to the crowd because I'm like, you're going to get some history today because I think it's important to understand where we've been. Even if I'm just
learn from your mistakes, right?
Even if we're just doing a tree talk or gardening talk, I still try to throw in some history. If you're a fan of history, ancient history especially, and you think about the Aztecs, the Mayans, every other culture, most of them built houses on their agricultural land. And right now they're doing LIDAR on the jungles in the Yucatan and all of that. And they find out just pretty much the whole jungle was a giant city. And they did the same thing we're doing right now. And then, and then, they have a drought that knocks out what little bit of agricultural land's left for long enough that everybody has to just pack up and leave. And there went your civilization. The guy who founded the Soil Conservation Service through the USDA over 100 years ago wrote a book. Little pamphlet, little flyer, kind of like this was kind of his position paper trying to encourage people to do this. And he went around the world studying defunct civilizations and showing, behold, the land of milk and honey, which is now rocks and dirt, right? You read the Bible, when Moses came across the mountains looking down into the valley, there were 100-foot tall trees, cedars of Lebanon. And there's one little patch of cedars of Lebanon left, and it's surrounded by a fence to keep the goats from eating the trees. And as far as you can see, all the way around it is just rocks.
Yeah.
And
is it too late?
No, I don't think it's too late.
That's good.
But we are building houses on the most productive land in the world. right now here in Henderson County. Yeah. So it would be really great if we didn't do that, because, the thing about a farm and farming's got its own environmental problems, right? It's industrial farming, especially. Can't feed the world without pesticides and fertilizers. It's just a fact. So you can't feed billions of people anyway. You're not going to feed the world organically. Do as much as you can locally, but when it comes to like making bread and making corn for everything else, you're going to have to do it mechanically and industrially and all that. But we're not too far gone yet, as far as locally, as far as preserving farmland. We still got time to do it. But I don't think enough people understand. And I was just talking to somebody about this last week. They're like, how can we get the message out? And we need we really need like documentaries and meaningful media, more. It's
all about education.
Yeah. And you get somebody that moves here from, which a lot of people move here either from New York or Florida, a whole bunch of people. They look at this place. It looks like a rural wonderland. They're like, this place is so country, I can't even believe it. Right. Which is having been here, we're like, no, it's more urban now than it's ever been. Henderson County is literally federally labeled as a urbanizing county. To me, that sounds horrible.
Well, we're technically a suburb of Asheville, right?
I don't know that we would even be a suburb of Asheville. I think we're our own our own municipal area. Maybe we started out as that, but I think now we're kind of like our own rapidly developing area. I've got 11 more years left in my career, and it's my mission to like talk about this as much as possible until I retire. And that's all I can do. As far as doing environmentally friendly landscaping, I encourage people to plant native plants which benefit pollinators and beneficial insects. I encourage people to be aware of agriculture. So agricultural awareness is what we call it. That's another title that we program under. That's where we do our 8th grade field trip to the farms. We do Farm City Day, which is our big agricultural fair that we have in Jackson Park every year. That's an agricultural awareness event. Basically, the mission is to teach kids where their food comes from. They've done lots of studies, surveys over the years. Kids your average kid does not know where tomato comes from. They don't know that ketchup was made from tomatoes. They don't know that French fries came from a potato that grew in the dirt. And they don't know that hamburger comes from a dead animal. I mean, literally, they just have no idea. Nobody's ever told them. And so that's what we try to do, is raise the awareness of agriculture, not just with children, is the ones we have the most ability to reach, but with adults as well. Because like I said, if you get somebody moving here from New Jersey, which a lot of people do, or New York, they may not be even aware of what's going on agriculturally around here, and all they ever see is the apple barns in the fall, You
touched on food and you made a point that kind of stuck with me. You said it's impossible to feed the world organically. But there are a lot of people these days that argue that our food is killing us.
I would say that's debatable.
Okay.
To a large degree. I don't want to get in a whole discussion about glyphosate, but let's just say glyphosate is not poisonous to humans. That's the active ingredient Roundup, but neither is sugar. But when it's in everything, is it a problem then? That's what we don't know, right? And so it's like the way we talk about it is wrong. People are like, they're so anti-chemicals and anti-this. Well, it's like, it's not that if you spray your fence line in your yard, Roundup's not going to kill you. But if it's on every bite of food that you eat, right? Because they literally burn down wheat with it every year.
Do you eat organic?
I eat as natural as possible.
Grass-fed?
I don't necessarily seek out grass-fed. Okay. I mean, I go to Ingles and buy my steaks and pork chops from there. Yeah. I guarantee you those pigs were raised in the eastern part of the state. We're the largest pork producer in the country, I think, and North Carolina is. And they were probably all factory farmed, Yeah. Is that great? Not really, but spread them out over enough ground to give them a more grass-fed existence. Now you're talking about needing probably millions of acres just to feed the cows and stuff. So it's all and I'll never say there's too many people because I'm pro people. And my favorite agricultural hero, well, my second favorite, George Washington Carver is my favorite agricultural hero. My second one is Norman Borlaug, who's nobody's ever heard of unless you were a super dork like me. Norman
It's not
Borlaug.
Johnny Appleseed, is it?
No, but he's essentially was. Norman Borlaug invented, so wheat used to get really tall and it had a big problem with falling over. And it also would do what they called shattering, which would mean that the seeds would fall off the stalk, right? He invented, just through breeding, shorter, stockier, more robust wheat, which increased yields tremendously. Literally, like they've calculated it, just his technological invention in wheat has provided food for more than 1 billion people. And so he did the same thing for corn. And then I think he might even worked on rice and basically just increased yields, which is great because you don't have to use more land. You just increase the yield on the land you're farming on. But he went to, 70s was a big time of environmental awareness and people attacked him. He won the Nobel Prize in one of the fields, but for his work feeding the world. But he took a lot of criticism, you shouldn't feed all these people because now all you're doing is increasing the population. And my favorite quote, and it lives in my head, is, "You cannot build a world of peace on empty stomachs." And he's like, basically, if there's 9 billion people here, you got to feed them. If you don't, there's going to be war and war and war and war. Yeah. That's all it's going to be because people will fight for water and food. And so you got to figure out a way to feed ever how many people's here. You can't control the population by starving them because if you do, you're going to have nothing but social discord. And so, this guy was in the 40s that he knew this, right?
Well, there are some that speculate that the war in Ukraine is because Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. That's part of the strategic importance of Ukraine.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And that side of Russia is also the breadbasket too. Yeah. And so, vast numbers of people, especially in places like Africa, got their wheat from the Ukraine. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But agriculture and feeding people is the most important thing. So feeding them, making sure they have enough water, and housing. Those 3 things, the most basic things, right? And it's like everything, there's a lot of, I'm not going to say any more than this. I'm not going to get any more conspiratorial than this. But whenever I look at something, no matter what it is, and you go, why is that? Nobody's willing to ascribe the worst possibilities, like it's on purpose. You know what I mean? Like Norman Borlaug said, you can't control population by getting rid of the breadbasket of Africa or whatever. You actually could, but it's going to be awful, right?
Isn't a lot of the wheat and the corn grown in this country for industrial farms for feed?
Yes. The majority of corn that is grown is for animals rather than people. Well, and biofuels. Yeah. So that's another debate you can have with people. Like I would argue that biofuels are less environmentally friendly than oil, like extracted from the ground and refined into gasoline.
We visited a cidery a while back when we first moved here, and we were shocked to discover that they didn't buy their apples locally.
And they used to tell people they did.
But it became an economic factor that they said that the apples were more expensive here.
True. So, with anything that becomes an international commodity, there's somewhere else that can do it cheaper. So apples squeezed into juice can be hauled around in giant tankers and shipped here from China and New Zealand and places like that. So if you buy on the open market juice on the open market, you can get it cheaper than you can get it here. So we have the capacity to provide them, the local place, plenty of juice that they wouldn't buy it.
Do you feel like there's an obligation to grow and consume agriculture within your own biome?
Yeah. So when earlier, I thought you were getting to this when you asked me about eating more natural and that sort of thing. If it's just like with pollution, right? When the government put the ads on TV and told people to quit throwing their cans out the window, the roads suddenly got cleaner, right? Yeah. So if everybody makes the choice, then everything gets easier. Like if everybody does little, it adds up to a lot, right? Yeah. So if everybody that can afford it shopped from local growers, local farmers, and we're willing to pay just a little more because it's not industrially farmed and it's harder to make and harder to store. It's more, it spoils quicker because it doesn't have chemicals on it, and the varieties they're growing are more heirloom and not the more modern varieties that have been selected to last longer and that sort of thing. If we all did that as much as possible, that would improve things, right?
Yeah.
Buying more local means that your stuff's not shipped, which means it's not polluting on the roads, right? All those transfer trucks are hauling stuff. Now, what I will say is like a store like Ingles buys a ton of stuff local. If you go to any Ingles, they got signs hanging up. I was in Boone visiting my son when he was in school up there. Kirby Johnson, local farmer, is on a sign in the store in town. It says, bought from Kirby Johnson in Hendersonville, North Carolina, these tomatoes or whatever. He owns Flavor First, which is our big tomato packaging plant. So, I think if we all tried to buy local, but like, again, Ingles does a great job. I mean, I've been into a place here, I won't name that name, but it's a hippy dippy grocery store that you would think everything there was local, and you look at the labels and they're from all over the place.
Yeah.
Now, they may be, quote unquote, organic, but they're not from here.
Yeah.
So did you negate the environmental benefits of the organic produce by shipping it 200 miles or whatever in a polluting truck? It's like, see, that's what people don't, it makes people feel good to eat that way.
Yeah, we probably shop there if it's the same place that I'm thinking. My wife is organic, holistic approach to everything, anti-chemical, anti-toxin. It's taken me a long time to come around and see the light in that. But I have to admit personally, I have lost a lot of weight.
Sure.
I have lost inflammation in my body. I've stopped snoring, which was a big deal.
Yeah.
Of course, I also quit drinking a few years ago, which set me on the path to health. But we've adopted an almost, and I say almost exclusively organic diet. But maybe we're getting some foods that were brought in from somewhere else, but that are still organic.
The health benefits are still there, but are the environmental benefits there if it's not locally produced?
Yeah.
And I've heard from farmers it's hard to get stuff in that store just because for whatever reason they just won't buy from locals as much and it's harder. So shopping at the farmer's market's a great way to interact with your local farmer.
Absolutely.
And we have 5 farmers markets in the county, one in every community. Some multiple ones in Hendersonville, right? So Hendersonville Farmers Market and Mills River Farmers Market are kind of the 2 bigger ones. And both of those are great. You can go there every Saturday morning. Your farmer's going to be there with your cuts of meat or your fresh vegetables that are in season. And it's really not that much more expensive than the grocery store. It may be less convenient because you can't buy your cereal and all that other stuff at the same time. However, the experience is good and it's better for the community because the money's staying here local. It's also every tomato and every head of lettuce and every steak you buy from a local farmer, you're basically protecting farmland.
Yeah.
And if that's something that's valuable to you, then the money that you spend on your groceries should be going to local farmers if you can.
And you're saving on healthcare costs.
And you're saving.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
support your local farmers market.
Yeah. So agriculture in Henderson County is super important. It's still very strong, very robust. But we're going through changes right now because of the pressures from development and that sort of thing. So that is what we want people to know, and we want people to pay attention. We want people to support their local farmers. Supporting local farmers helps protect the farmland. Support our county officials who are really working hard to do our local farmland preservation programs as well. Support your local farming agencies such as ours in the USDA office, the FSA office, the Farm Service Agency office, the Henderson County Soil and Water Department. All of us work together to basically try to promote agriculture and provide farmers the tools that they need to be able to feed us all.
Well, you're doing a great job, Steve.
Yeah, so I'll just plug some things real quick. One, my podcast, the Gardening in the Mountains podcast, is available on Spotify. You can listen to it on. I don't get up at 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings, but if you do, you can listen to it at 8 a.m. on WTZQ. That's when it airs first. And then later on, you can pick it up as a download from WTZQ's website, or you can go to Spotify, where I've archived all 262 episodes. If you want to know anything about gardening, go to the Henderson County Extension website, use the search bar in the upper right-hand corner, enter whatever term it is, tomatoes, trees, plant problems, whatever, up there, and it'll bring up all the articles. I've done 350 articles in the last 9 years that I've put on there, and it covers the gamut of all the things you might see in the landscape. The other thing, I teach master gardeners annually and build the master gardener group. Master gardeners go out in the community and do education through gardening in the community. They take care of the pollinator garden at the Flat Rock Park, the pollinator garden at Mills River Park, the pollinator garden at Tuxedo Library, the landscape at the Flat Rock Playhouse. They're in the community doing all kinds of great work. Support them. I train them and support them. And finally, the other thing is, this is a personal plug. I have some bands that I play in locally. So
you're like a Renaissance man.
I'm just, I like music a lot. Yeah. And playing music with other people is my favorite thing to do.
Tell me it's bluegrass.
It's bluegrass infused.
How appropriate.
Yeah. And so it's the Apple Country String Band is one of my groups, and that's the one that's the most bluegrassy. But we will play some bluegrass. But we also play whatever else we want to play. We'll play some country and some rock and some blues. Then I have a band called Appalachia, and the title from that comes from a saying that the bass player says is, if you say Appalachia, I'm going to throw an apple at you. Because he's like, local people say Appalachia.
So it's Appalachia.
Yeah. And so that one is more blues and rock, and I'll play electric guitar in that one. And then my final one, which is what kind of my favorite one, we don't do as much as I would like. It's called the Banjovies. And we play 90s
That's great.
covers on bluegrass instruments.
Gee, what do you do in your spare time, Steve? Do you have any time left over?
I ride my bike. I like to ride bikes because I hate to walk because it's too slow. I can't run because I'm old. So riding the bike you can cover more ground and see things. So I like to ride out at DuPont and ride the gravel roads, and I like to ride the Cooster Trail, which is the number one piece of infrastructure that we've added since I've been here.
It's pretty sweet.
I mean, it is unbelievable how many people use that every day. I've been on it every day for the last 8 days.
Wow.
After work.
I can't wait till you can take it all the way to Brevard.
It's going to be so cool. I'm going to talk to a guy I know that owns a big farm out that way about putting in a campground.
Oh, neat.
And if he can make money, he'd probably do it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool to ride a bike halfway? You go 8 miles and carry a tent and a backpack or whatever, little kit, go out there and camp out, then go to Brevard, ride in the Pisgah Forest. Yeah. Maybe camp out there and then work your way back here.
Live off the land.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool.
Well, thanks for having me, Nick. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the show, Steve, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, man.
And Semper Fidelis.
Semper Fi, my brother.
The Kudzu Project is made possible by the Lucy Agency, helping businesses across the South grow deep roots and stand out. Based in Hendersonville, North Carolina, this full-service marketing firm builds handcrafted websites, eye-catching logos, and social media that pops for businesses and organizations. Because if your story's worth telling, it's worth telling right. Learn more at lucyagency.com. That's LUCEY agency.com.
Everyone has a story. And at the Kudzu Project, we want to hear yours. Go to kudzuproject.com and fill out our story submission form. You can write your story for us to read on the podcast, request to be interviewed, or even nominate someone else whose story deserves to be told. The Kudzu Project is all about capturing the voices and spirit of our community, and your story could be the next one we share. Visit kudzuproject.com and tell your story today.